All right, so you're probably wondering why the Indian stock market is closed today.
Wow.
And that's what we're going to be diving into.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah.
It's closed for Guru Nanak Jayanti,
Yes.
which is the birth anniversary of the founder of Sikhism, Guru Nanak Dev.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is that this is happening in the middle of some pretty big market turbulence.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Guru Nanak Jayanti is a really big event, not only for
Okay.
the roughly 25 million Sikhs in India, but also for the global Sikh community.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a day that's centered around values like equality, compassion, and service to humanity.
Okay.
And these are values that obviously resonate far beyond
Yeah.
just the religious sphere.
Okay, so that explains the closure. But, what does it actually mean for the stock market?
Right.
Which exchanges are closed and what kind of trading is on hold?
So we're talking about a full closure of both the Bombay Stock Exchange,
Yeah.
which is also known as the BSE,
Got it.
and the National Stock Exchange,
Yeah.
or the NSE.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means everything from equities to derivatives are completely off the table for the day.
Wow.
Yeah, even the currency and commodity markets are impacted by this.
A complete standstill.
Yeah.
So does that mean that, these planned closures are already, factored into
Absolutely.
those super fast algorithmic trading models we hear so much about?
Absolutely. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if these algorithms already factor in these planned breaks.
Right.
Predictability, even in the form of a pause, can be really valuable in the world of high-speed finance.
Right.
So,
It's like the market's taking a breather
yeah.
before it jumps back into the action.
Yeah.
And speaking of action, this holiday comes at a pretty tense time
It does.
for the Indian stock market.
It does. We've been seeing a downward trend for a while now.
Okay.
Both the Sensex, which tracks the BSE, and the Nifty, which is tied to the NSE, have been on a losing streak
Oh, wow.
for 6 consecutive sessions.
6 sessions.
Yeah.
That's a pretty significant dip. Can you give us a sense of the actual numbers?
Yeah.
Where did they close on the last trading day?
So on November 14th, the Sensex closed at 77,580.31 points,
Okay.
which is down 110.64 points,
Okay.
or 0.14%.
Right.
The Nifty ended at 23,532.70 points,
Yeah.
down 26.35 points, or 0.11%.
Got it.
And both of these are at multi-month lows.
Okay, so definitely some downward pressure there.
Yeah.
What are some of the main factors behind this slump? Something specific to India, or is there a broader global context at play?
It's actually a bit of both.
Okay.
Internally, we've got a few things going on.
Right.
First, there's been this significant pullback from foreign institutional investors, or
Yeah.
FIIs.
FIS.
Yeah, and these are big players who invest across borders.
Right.
And their movements can really have a major impact on market sentiment.
Yeah, so it's
Exactly.
when big investors get skittish, everyone else kind of starts to worry too.
Exactly.
What else is contributing to this kind of gloomy outlook?
Well, rising retail inflation is a big concern.
Yeah.
It erodes the purchasing power of consumers,
Mhm.
which can make investors nervous about company profits and overall economic stability.
Yeah.
So to put it simply, when things cost more,
People buy less.
people buy less, and that ripples through the entire market.
Right. Inflation hits everyone's wallets.
Exactly.
Are there any other internal factors we should be aware of?
Yeah. The third piece of the puzzle here is that we've been seeing these relatively weak second quarter earnings reports.
Yeah.
And so some major companies haven't performed as well as expected,
Right.
which can make investors hesitant to keep their money in the market.
So we've got foreign investors kind of hitting the brakes.
Yeah.
Rising inflation is eating into everyone's budget.
Yeah.
And companies aren't quite hitting those earning targets.
Exactly.
So that's like a triple whammy for investor confidence.
Yeah, and this negativity has been particularly evident in the fast-moving consumer goods sector,
Right.
or FMCG. Yeah, and these are, the everyday products we buy,
Right.
and their performance is often seen as a barometer for overall consumer sentiment.
Okay, so while India is hitting pause for Guru Nanak Jayanti,
Yeah.
were other Asian markets also closed today?
No, the closure is specific to India for this holiday.
Okay.
However,
Got it.
there's definitely a sense of uncertainty across global markets.
Okay, so let's zoom out and get a quick snapshot of what's happening globally.
Right.
How did Asian markets fare today?
It was a real mixed bag, actually.
Okay.
So Japan's Nikkei index climbed 0.8%,
Okay,
and Hong Kong's Hang Seng index edged up 0.54%.
right?
Taiwan's weighted index also saw gains,
Okay.
rising 0.5%.
So some positive signs there. Were there any that didn't fare so well?
Yeah. On the flip side, South Korea's KPI index slipped,
Oh.
ending the day down 0.4%.
Interesting. A little bit of a tug of war happening there.
Yeah.
How about the oil market? How was that doing?
So Brent crude oil, which is, a major global benchmark,
Right.
was trading at $72.13 per barrel.
Right. Okay. And what about U.S. markets?
So they wrapped up Thursday's session on a lower note.
Okay.
The S&P 500, which tracks a wide range of U.S. companies, dipped 0.6%,
Okay.
and the tech-heavy NASDAQ closed down 0.69%.
So it sounds like there's this broader sense of nervousness kind of rippling through global markets.
Yes, and this is where things get really fascinating.
Oh?
You have this convergence of a really significant cultural event in India
Yeah.
with this rather volatile period
Okay.
in both domestic and international markets.
Well, we've covered how Guru Nanak Jayanti is impacting the Indian stock market today.
Right.
We've talked about the recent market downturn.
Yeah.
And all those different factors that are driving it.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned earlier that this isn't the only holiday-related closure this month.
That's right.
What else is on the horizon?
You're right. We actually have 2 more trading holidays
2 more.
coming up in November.
Wow. Really fill us in.
Okay, so the next one is on November 20th,
Okay.
and that is for the Maharashtra Assembly General elections.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Big elections can definitely stir things up in the market.
Yeah.
What's the third closure?
So the last one for November
Okay.
falls on December 25th for
Okay.
Christmas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So November is going to be a month punctuated by these trading breaks.
Right.
It makes you wonder how these pauses might affect those short-term trading strategies,
Yeah.
especially with the market already experiencing volatility.
It's definitely something that traders have to consider.
Right.
But, beyond the immediate impact on trading,
Yeah.
this highlights a bigger point.
What's that?
These cultural and political events can have a very real impact on the financial world.
Right. These closures aren't just calendar quirks.
Exactly.
They're kind of woven into how these markets actually operate.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the closures of the BSE and the NSE for Guru Nanak Jayanti.
Right.
But what about other markets, like specifically the commodity markets?
Yeah.
Did those shut down completely?
So that's a good question. Yeah.
And the answer is a little bit more nuanced
Okay.
than a simple yes or no.
Okay.
So while the stock exchanges are closed for the entire day,
Mm-hmm.
the commodity markets have a slightly different approach.
Okay.
India's largest non-agricultural commodity exchange,
Okay.
which is the Multi-Commodity Exchange, or MCX,
MCX got it.
is observing a partial closure.
A partial closure. What does that mean?
So they were closed for the first session,
Okay.
which runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay.
But they'll be back online for the evening session,
Okay.
which is from 5 p.m. to either 11.30 or 11.55 p.m.,
Got it.
depending on the specific commodities being traded.
So kind of a split schedule for them.
Yeah.
And how about the agricultural commodity markets? Are they operating today?
So the National Commodity and Derivatives Exchange,
Right.
also known as NCDX,
NCBEX.
remain closed for both the morning and evening sessions.
Okay, so a full closure for those.
Right.
So it seems like even within the broader closure for Guru Nanak Jayanti,
Yeah.
there's some variation.
Absolutely. And how different segments of the financial markets are responding.
It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Right.
And, understanding these nuances can be pretty important for anyone involved in these markets.
Right. It's like looking through a kaleidoscope. You see the same broader event,
Yeah,
but the patterns and colors kind of shift depending on which part you're looking at.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it really underscores the complexity and interconnectedness
Right.
of the global financial system.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the cultural significance of Guru Nanak Jayanti
Yeah,
to, the jitters in the global market.
yeah,
But this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
it is.
We'll be back to continue our deep dive in part 2.
Sounds good.
Welcome back.
It is amazing how a day like Guru Nanak Jayanti, with its deep cultural and spiritual meaning, can have such a tangible impact on the world of finance.
Right.
Yeah, it really highlights how everything's connected, doesn't it? We often think of markets as being driven by, purely numbers and algorithms.
Right.
But these kinds of cultural events
Yeah,
remind us that there's a human element at play.
that's so true. It's a good reminder that behind all those charts and graphs,
Yeah.
there are real people
Mm.
making decisions
Yeah,
based on a whole range of factors, including their beliefs and values.
exactly.
And speaking of values, Guru Nanak emphasized the importance of selfless service, and giving back to the community.
Right.
I wonder if that resonates at all with this growing trend of ESG investing, where investors consider environmental, social, and governance factors
Right.
alongside those financial returns.
That's a really interesting connection.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible that for some investors, especially those who align with those principles,
Right.
a day like Guru Nanak Jayanti might reinforce their commitment to ESG-focused investments.
Yeah.
We've seen a surge in interest in those kinds of funds and strategies in recent years. And it's just fascinating to think about how cultural events like this could be subtly shaping those trends.
Yeah, it's like these cultural events provide a moment of reflection,
Yeah.
not just on a personal level,
Right.
but also in terms of how we choose to invest and participate in the financial system.
Exactly. And adds this whole other layer of, complexity and depth
Yeah.
to what might otherwise seem like purely rational, data-driven decisions.
Totally. And speaking of decisions,
Yeah.
this kind of brings us back to that market volatility we were discussing earlier.
Right.
I'm curious what your take is on how these holiday closures,
Yeah.
these planned pauses in trading might influence short-term trading strategies, especially during a time when the market's already on edge.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you could argue that a break like this might give the market a chance to cool off a little bit.
Okay.
Investors can step back, reassess the situation without the constant pressure of those real-time trades.
Right, like hitting the pause button on a roller coaster ride.
Exactly.
Just a moment to catch your breath before the next plunge.
Yeah, but there's a flip side to that, isn't there?
Oh, totally. What's that?
Well, this pause could also lead to some pent-up demand or anxiety.
Right.
And that could create even more volatile swings when trading resumes.
Right. It's almost like holding your breath for too long.
Exactly.
The release can be pretty intense.
Exactly.
And I wonder if these planned closures could be factored into
I'm sure.
those super fast algorithmic trading models
Absolutely,
we
yeah.
talked about.
Sophisticated algorithms are designed to find patterns and exploit those tiny inefficiencies.
Right.
It wouldn't be surprising at all if some of them have figured out how to capitalize on the predictability of these planned breaks.
Totally. It's like knowing the traffic patterns in a city
Yeah.
and using that knowledge to find the quickest routes, even if it means taking a detour during rush hour.
Exactly.
So while most of us see a holiday as a chance to relax and recharge, for some in the financial world, it's just another data point to be analyzed and leveraged.
It's a different perspective, for sure.
It is.
And it reminds us that even in this world of high finance,
Yeah.
there are multiple ways
Right.
to interpret and react to the same event.
So we've been talking a lot about those internal factors
Right.
driving that Indian market downturn. Things like foreign investor pullback, rising inflation.
Yeah.
But what about the global context?
Yeah.
You mentioned there's this sense of uncertainty
Right.
rippling through markets worldwide.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little more insight into what's happening on that global scale?
Sure. It's important to remember that no market exists in a vacuum.
Right.
What happens in one part of the world
Yeah.
can have ripple effects across the globe.
Totally.
And right now, there are a few things contributing to this sense of unease among global investors.
Okay, like what are some of those global factors that are keeping investors up at night?
Well, one factor is this ongoing concern about rising interest rates
Great.
in major economies like the United States.
Right.
When interest rates go up, it becomes more expensive for businesses to borrow money, which can then slow down economic growth.
Right.
And that can make investors nervous.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly.
One change in one part of the global economy can trigger a chain reaction
Exactly.
in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
What else is contributing to this global uncertainty?
Another factor is the geopolitical landscape.
Okay.
We're seeing increased tensions in various parts of the world.
Right.
And that always has the potential to create volatility in the markets.
Right.
When investors sense instability, they tend to become more cautious and risk averse.
Right. It's hard to feel confident about investing
Yeah,
when the world feels unpredictable
exactly.
and potentially volatile.
Yeah.
Are there any other global factors we should be aware of?
Well, there are always a multitude of factors influencing the market. But I think another one worth mentioning is this sort of lingering concern about supply chain disruptions.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The pandemic really threw a wrench in the global flow of goods and materials.
Really?
And while things have improved, there are still bottlenecks and delays. And this can drive up prices and create uncertainty for businesses and investors.
So we've got this complex interplay of internal challenges within the Indian market,
Right.
combined with these broader global anxieties.
Exactly.
It's no wonder investors are feeling a little on edge.
It's a lot to process, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it really highlights the importance of staying informed
Mm-hmm.
and understanding how interconnected these global events are.
We've explored the cultural significance of Guru Nanak Jayanti.
Yeah.
We delved into the factors driving that Indian market downturn.
Right.
We've even touched on this broader sense of uncertainty.
Yeah.
In the global market, it's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion,
Yeah.
revealing more complexity with each layer.
Absolutely.
But we're not done yet.
Yep.
We still need to dive into this fascinating world of commodity markets
Right.
and how they're navigating this holiday closure.
Exactly.
Join us for the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive into this closure of the Indian stock market for Guru Nanak Jayanti.
Yeah.
We've explored the cultural significance
Right.
of the holidays.
Yeah.
We talked about the factors behind this recent market downturn,
Mm-hmm.
and we've even touched on that broader global context of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But now let's shift gears a little bit and focus on the commodity markets.
All right.
How are they handling this temporary shutdown?
Yeah. So
You mentioned before that it's not a simple like on or off situation for commodities.
That's right. The commodity markets operate a bit differently
Okay.
from those main stock exchanges.
Right.
So while the BSE and NSE are completely closed for the day,
Mm-hmm.
some of these commodity exchanges have opted for a partial closure, while others have shut down completely.
Can you walk us through the specifics?
Sure.
Which exchanges are partially closed and which ones are fully closed?
So India's largest non-agricultural commodity exchange,
Right.
the Multi-Commodity Exchange, or MCX,
MCX.
decided on a partial closure for Guru Nanak Jayanti.
Okay.
So they were closed for that first session from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. meter,
Right.
but they reopened for the evening session,
Got it.
which runs from 5 p.m. meter to either 11.30 or 11.55 p.m. meters,
Okay.
depending on the specific commodities being traded.
So a bit of a split schedule for them.
Yeah.
What about those agricultural commodity markets? How are they handling the holiday?
So the Agricultural Commodity Exchange, which is the National Commodity and Derivatives Exchange,
Okay.
also called NCDX,
NZDGKX.
opted for a full closure.
Mm-hmm.
They remain closed for both the morning and evening sessions.
Interesting. So we see this variation in approach even within the commodity markets.
Right.
What are some of the factors that might influence an exchange's decision to go with a partial closure versus a full closure?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it really comes down to a few considerations. One factor is the nature of the commodities being traded.
Okay.
Some commodities, especially those agricultural products,
Right.
are a lot more sensitive to time and perishability.
Right.
So a full closure might be necessary to avoid disruptions in the physical delivery and storage of those goods.
Makes sense to be different considerations for
Exactly.
commodities like wheat or soybeans
Right.
compared to like metals or energy products.
Exactly.
What other factors might come into play?
Another factor is that global interconnectedness of the commodity markets.
Okay.
Some commodities like crude oil or gold
Right.
are traded on those international exchanges that operate 24/7.
Right.
So a partial closure allows Indian traders to at least stay somewhat connected
Okay.
to those global markets, even if there's a local holiday going on.
So it's like this balancing act
Yeah.
between respecting those local customs and holidays
Right.
while also staying plugged into that global flow of trade.
It highlights that complexity of managing these markets in a world that's becoming increasingly interconnected.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So we've talked about how Guru Nanak Jayanti is impacting the Indian stock and commodity markets.
Right.
We touched on that broader sense of uncertainty in the global economy.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to kind of circle back
Yeah.
to a theme that's been woven throughout our conversation.
Okay.
The interplay of the planned and the unplanned in the world of finance.
Yeah, it is a fascinating dynamic.
Isn't it?
We've got those planned events like holidays and elections
Mm-hmm.
that create those predictable pauses in trading.
Right.
But then you've got those unpredictable events,
Totally.
the unexpected twists and turns
Right.
that can throw even the most carefully crafted plans completely off course.
It's like navigating a maze where some of the walls are fixed
Yeah.
and some can shift without warning.
Exactly.
We've discussed how sophisticated algorithms
Right.
might be able to factor in those predictable pauses.
Yeah.
But what about those unpredictable events?
Yeah.
Like those black swan events that nobody sees coming.
Yeah.
How can investors and traders prepare for those unknowns?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And, unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
No model or algorithm can fully account for those infinite possibilities of the real world.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we're powerless.
Right.
One way to prepare for the unpredictable is to really focus on building resilience,
Okay.
to create portfolios and strategies that can withstand those shocks and adapt to changing circumstances.
That's like building a house in an earthquake zone.
Exactly.
You can't prevent the earthquake from happening.
Right.
But you can make the structure more resistant to damage.
Exactly. And, that involves diversifying investments, managing risk carefully, and maybe most importantly, staying informed and adaptable.
Right.
The more we understand the complexities of the financial world,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to navigate both those planned and unplanned events that shape it.
That's a great takeaway. So as the Indian markets prepare to reopen
Right.
after observing Guru Nanak Jayanti,
Yeah.
it's a good time for all of us to reflect
Yeah.
on this dance between predictability and uncertainty,
Right.
between the known and the unknown.
Absolutely. And to remember that in this world of finance, just as in life,
Yeah.
the only constant is change.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the closure of the Indian stock market for Guru Nanak Jayanti.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
And keep learning.
and keep learning.